You're listening to an Airwave Media Podcast.
How many discounts does USAA Auto Insurance offer? Too many to say here. Multi-vehicle discount, safe driver discount, new vehicle discount, storage discount, legacy.
How many discounts will you stack up? Visit USAA.com/auto discounts. Restrictions apply.
Hello, this is Kate Lister from Betwixt the Sheets, and you are listening to Queen's Podcast. Katie and Nathan have asked me to jump in here to let you know that they do use explicit language on this show. And if that's not for you, if you're of a sensitive disposition, consider this your warning to get out now while you still can. And don't be listening and then writing anybody angry letters, because fair dues, we did tell you. But if you do like offensive material, and if you do like to be shocked, then why don't you head over to our show as well and listen to Betwixt the Sheets, the history of sex, scandal and society, for all things historically smutty.
Hi, this is Katie.
And this is Nathan.
And you're listening to Queen's Podcast, the show about women in history.
Nathan, season 8 finale.
Season 8.
We have been doing this for 8 years, and we are finally ending the stories of the wives of Henry VIII. It feels weird.
It's the end of an era. Like, it's the end of the wives. Like, we've gone through every single one of them. It's quite strange. You're right.
I know. Oh my gosh. Well, Catherine Parr, Part 3.
I see what you did there. Clever. But before we get started, let's do some Patreon shoutouts.
Yes, our last Patreon shoutouts of season 8. Thank you so much to Patreon supporter Caitlin and Sarah Beth.
Also, shoutouts to Hannah and Victoria.
Yes. And so if you are new to the show and this is your first end of season with Queens, we always take a summer break. So from like June, and then we pick back up in September. So we are going to be embarking on a summer break. On the main feed, we'll play some reruns or some stuff from the Patreon vault. But we still put out some Patreon episodes here and there over the summer break. So if that's of interest to you for a little summer treat yourself, bitches. If not, we'll see ya in September.
Yeah, we need a little bit of a recharge after a full year because we've got normal jobs of like a 9 to 6 plus this, so we gotta recharge a little. And I'm going to Europe for my birthday, so that should be a lot of fun. Hopefully, I plan on getting inspired by some gal or event there, and I will definitely be back to write a Patreon episode for sure. There is a whole installment in the Louvre, and it's just couture fashion. It's all like Chanel and Jean-Paul Gaultier, and oh my god, it's gonna it's like the perfect installment. And you know me, I'm gonna be like sending you pictures of every single fucking thing. I can't wait.
Are you going to try to see Anne of Cleves' portrait? It's in the Louvre.
Yes.
And they've recently cleaned it up.
Ooh, I can't wait. Oh, this is so exciting.
So you're doing Paris, Barcelona, and Berlin, right?
Yeah.
Well, you're going to have a blast. But yeah, so that is our summer. Definitely check out the Patreon if you're so inclined. Otherwise, we will see you back. But hey, why don't we finish up the life of Catherine Parr?
Yeah. When we last left Catherine Parr, she was newly widowed and found that she had not been given a seat at the table in, the new regency for her stepson, Edward. And she's pissed. But for now, she's got Dowager Queen shit to do. But the Dowager Queen wasn't expected to really take part in the funeral planning, and also didn't attend the funeral. So she's really just like rushed off to the country into seclusion after the king dies. And she's bored out of her mind.
And also it's expected to be like this big grieving period. And while I think she grieved Henry in a way, I don't think she was heartbroken,
No.
And she hates being off in the country, like secluded by herself. And she now just has all the time in the world to sit and stew about how pissed off she is that she was left out of the regency. Like little baby Edward's stepson, her new king, his uncle Edward Seymour appointed himself Lord Protector, which basically is like de facto king since the King Edward is only 9 years old. Hey, Nathan, what do babies not need?
Babies don't need jobs.
Thank you. So he can't run it by his own because of the 9 of it all.
but the 9 out of it all.
Yeah. So Edward Seymour is more or less the head bitch in charge now.
Yeah, and Catherine is not crazy about Edward Seymour or his wife, Anne Stanhope, who we referred to as the Starfuckers in the last episode. She thinks they are just out for clout and power and don't have Edward's best interest at heart.
So while she's away stewing, this is all that's like filling her mind because she's got literally nothing else to do except maybe write letters to ex-boyfriends. But we'll get into that later.
Like the moment it was acceptable to come out of seclusion after the funeral, Catherine was back in London, still respecting the customs of mourning, of course. But she is ready to remind everyone, my husband might be dead, but I'm not, honey. I've done this widow shit before, and I am fine.
But here's the thing. What do you do with a young Dowager Queen? She has no power. She wasn't given any part of the regency. There's no place at court for her. She's not expected to hang around court. She's expected to retire to one of her estates that were left to her in Henry's will and like only come out of her retirement for like special occasions and holidays and shit.
Which, if this sounds boring and depressing, you're right.
Ding, ding, ding. Yes.
But in March, Catherine and her household were packed up and shipped off to her dower house, Chelsea Manor, which is not that far at all. Like, she could very easily pop into Hampton Palace for a day trip or an overnight stay. I think the easiest way would be to take a barge for like 2 hours. So it's really not that long.
It's not that far.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We've seen worse.
Yes.
It was symbolic, though. This is a reminder of, the old regime of Henry VIII. She's no longer useful here, and she hates this.
She hates it. She had that taste of power, and now it's been stripped away from her, and she hates it. Her stepson, Edward, King Edward, does write to her all the time. Remember, that's the only mother he's really ever known.
Mm-hmm.
And so he's always telling her, like, I miss you, but she can't actually complain to him about being sent away. Though he's king, he's still like a child. He can't do anything without the regency, and they've made it clear they don't want him there. So,
yeah. However, the 13-year-old Princess Elizabeth didn't really have anywhere to go after the death of her father, and Catherine is granted custody of her, which Elizabeth was over the moon about. I think they both were over the moon about.
I think they were both. I think they genuinely loved each other. So, yeah.
Remember, Catherine has always loved acting as a mother to her stepkids because they didn't have one. Because whoopsie daisy, I chopped one of their heads off. Both with Henry and her second husband, John Neville, too. So this goes through both husbands.
Yeah.
And I think Elizabeth would have been a little nervous about what her future holds now that all those Seymours are in charge. Suddenly Seymours.
Suddenly Seymour might pack you off to a convent.
But regardless, Elizabeth and Catherine would have been a huge comfort to each other.
Right. So speaking of the Seymours, let's circle back to Catherine's ex-boyfriend, Thomas. As we mentioned in the last episode, Thomas Seymour also feels like he's been left out, though he was granted a pretty sweet job and a pretty sweet title. He becomes the Baron of Sudley, and he's made Lord Admiral of England. So that's like to do with the Navy. So like he's not completely left out, but we're gonna learn about Thomas Seymour is that he's a bit of a hothead. He's got a bit of a chip on his shoulder, wouldn't you say? I suddenly need to look up. Do we know his birthday? Thomas Seymour.
What sign is he?
We don't know his birthday. We just know he was probably born in 1508. So he feels like he's been passed over, so he is on the prowl for a wife with connections.
Now, there are stories that right after Henry VIII's death, Thomas Seymour tried to marry each of the king's the dead king's daughters. I almost said the king's dead daughters. They weren't dead.
Whoa.
That would have been a problem.
Yeah.
The story of him trying to marry Princess Mary are more than likely fabricated as a way to make Thomas Seymour sound even more sleazy than he's gonna be.
Yeah. Now, there are copies that exist of letters supposedly written between Princess Elizabeth and Thomas Seymour with him proposing to her. And Elizabeth basically being like, I am 13 and I am in mourning, so please politely fuck all the way off. However, the only copies that exist of those are like an Italian translation. So we don't know if those are real or not, or if they're like fabricated to make him look creepy. So who knows?
And look, we're going to get into it. Thomas Seymour goes down in history as a pretty sleazy motherfucker. And by the end of this episode, you're going to be like, ew.
Yeah.
This fucking guy.
Yes.
But up to this point, we actually have no hard, concrete evidence that he's done anything wrong or inappropriate outside of being ambitious, just like everyone else in the story. And, he's a little bit of a fuckboy, too.
Yeah, who amongst us has not fallen prey to a fuckboy? Nobody's hands are raised. So, yeah. So, that all being said, Thomas is probably the only man that Catherine has ever been involved with romantically that was like of her own choosing. And girl has been a widow 3 times, but she's young. She's only 35. She still has plenty of life to live. And Henry told her she could remarry. So we don't know when her eye turned back to Thomas, but it did at some point. And she was ready to break the rules that went along with this mourning that she was supposed to be in. And she was ready to finally have a man of her choosing.
So we don't know when they started their relationship back up, but they probably bumped into each other one day at court. Catherine was going to court whenever she could find an excuse to, and Thomas's brother was the head dude in charge, so they would have had plenty of opportunities to bump into one another. Mm-hmm. And it was likely at one of these meetings at court that she was like, hey, if you came and visited me at Chelsea Manor, I wouldn't turn you away.
I wouldn't say no. And so he did go visit her at Chelsea. Perhaps spending the night? And perhaps spending the night in her bed? Look, no facts, just vibes, but it's super likely that by March or April, so 3 months or so after Henry's death, these two were doing it.
You mean bumping butts?
Bumping butts. And why not? Why not? At this point, she's been married for 3 times. She probably thinks she can't get pregnant. And because she's never been pregnant before. Mm-hmm. So she's like, why not? Again, she's not actually grieving Henry VIII. And now she's got this big house, and a beauty of the house in Chelsea as compared to court. In court, gossip is currency. Mm-hmm. You couldn't flirtatiously look at each other without gossip spreading. There ain't nobody there to spread any gossip in Chelsea. She's got privacy. So why not? Why not have some fun? Good for her.
We believe once they started probably hooking up, they probably planned to get engaged once enough time had passed, but they had to keep this shit on the down low. But Catherine couldn't keep it to herself. She ended up telling her sister Anne that she was the happiest she'd ever been in her life and totally spilled the bean, which, relatable. I get it. It's your sister.
You can't keep that to yourself. When you're happy, you want to scream it from the rooftops.
Yeah.
There's this really funny story. So Sister Anne and Thomas end up at a dinner party together. And Anne keeps giving him these looks and he was just sort of like, what? And so finally she gets him alone and she's like, I know you're fucking my sister. And he was all flustered, just no, I would never. And Anne is like, dude, chill. I'm not going to tell anybody. And I'm happy for y'all. And so but the whole exchange left Thomas so flustered because he's fucking the Dowager Duchess or the Dowager Queen with not the appropriate amount of time passing. So he skedaddles out of that party. He's like, okay, well, this is too much for me. But I just think that's so funny that the sister's just being like, yeah.
So it's unclear when or where the marriage occurred, but it definitely happened in secret. Mm-hmm. And way too soon for the liking of polite society. Normally, a Dowager Queen was supposed to stay single for a year, but they were almost certainly married by May, so this is only 4 months after Henry VIII died. But, oh my God, for the first time ever, she's actually happy in her life. She's happy about something that she's done, and it's for herself, right?
Yeah, and was it a little bit reckless?
Yeah.
But fuck it. Like, fuck it. I love this for her. I love this fuck it attitude for her. Let's go ahead and top off our drinks, and then we'll come right back and get into marriage number 4.
So, here's a plot twist I didn't see coming. My phone bill used to cost more than a weekend of bottomless brunch until I switched to Mint Mobile.
Same. I was out here paying quote-unquote royal wedding prices for chamber pot services.
Oh.
Mint Mobile, just $15 a month, and it actually works.
It's a premium wireless, people. High-speed data, unlimited talk and text, all on the nation's largest 5G network. So you can stream our podcast and drunk text your ex without Wi-Fi.
And you can use your own phone. Keep your number, your contacts, and your 17 ghosted group chats. No weird hoops, no drama. But skip the overpriced nonsense and treat yourself to something smarter.
Get your summer savings and shop premium wireless plans at mintmobile.com/queens. That's mintmobile.com/queens.
Upfront payment of $45 for 3-month 5GB plan required. It's equivalent to $15 a month. So, new customer offer for first activations only.
The one upgrade that won't have you overthinking. You know that moment when the weather warms up and suddenly nothing in your closet feels right? That was me a few weeks ago, staring into the same pile of stretched out tank tops and shorts that I've had for years. So I finally gave my summer wardrobe a little upgrade with Quince. Their stuff is so easy and elevated. I'm talking 100% European linen shorts, flowy dresses starting at like $30, swimwear, bags, shoes, and the best part, Quince doesn't play that designer price game. Everything is 50 to 80% off, less than those big name brands, because they work directly with top factories. No middlemen, just really good stuff at really good prices. I picked up a linen dress and a couple of their other summer staples for an upcoming weekend trip, and honestly, the quality blew me away. So if your closet could use a little summer glow up, go to quince.com/queenspod. You'll get free shipping and 365 days returns. That's QUINCE.com/queenspod. Cheers!
And we're back.
Yes.
So Catherine and Thomas are like, okay, we gotta play this smart. We need to get some powerful friends on our side before we approach the king with this. First, they start with Princess Mary. Thomas writes her this long letter being like, hey, quick hypothetical. If I, say, wanted to marry the Dowager Queen, could I count on your support? And Mary basically wrote back being like, dude, my dad just died. You are tacky AF. I'm just going to pretend that you didn't say that. That was disrespectful as fuck. Bye.
Bye. So, Mary is not on board.
Nope.
Mary is not going to be the ally that they were hoping for. So then Thomas goes to his nephew, King Edward, and is like, hey, I want to get married, but I don't know who the best candidate would be. Why don't we play matchmaker? Like, let's figure this out. Of all the women in England, who do you think is the sweetest, the kindest, the most devout? Basically just trying to get the king to think that it was his own little 9-year-old idea that he marry the Dowager Queen.
And sweet baby Edward was like, oh, I know. My Aunt Anne of Cleves.
And Thomas is like, let's put that like in the maybe column.
And then when he realized this game wasn't going to work, he was like, oh, you know what I just thought of? I know someone. She's kind, she's loving, and she lives real close by, so I could still come and see you all the time. What about your stepmother, the Dowager Queen Catherine?
Aww.
And sweet baby Edward is like, OMG, this is like the best idea ever. You should totally marry my stepmom and we can all stay together and be a happy family and I can totally see you all the time. And literally is like, what an amazing idea. Glad you thought of it.
Yeah, like made Edward think that he had thought of it himself, and just like, yeah. And so little Edward gets out his quill and gets out his paper and writes a letter to his address to his quote unquote mother, because he's still calling Catherine his mother. And he's like, dearest mother, you're never going to believe this amazing idea I just had. So with the blessing of the king, they're finally able to tell everyone, hey, we're actually already married. We've been married for some time now. And they're just thinking, hey, the king's cool with it. Everyone's going to be cool with it. What could go wrong?
But y'all, this was a scandal.
Narrator voice. No one was cool with it.
Now, after a decade or so of a king that cuts his wives' heads off, it wasn't a huge career-ending scandal.
The country had already been scandalized.
Yeah. It was just viewed as super fucking tacky. Like, could you just wait a year?
Like, why couldn't y'all have waited? Were y'all just so fucking horny that y'all couldn't wait? I mean, yes is the answer. But
is the answer, yeah.
But Mary was so furious. One, that she found out that Catherine was doing this tacky ass shit. And two, when she realized, oh, is that why y'all wrote me that letter? Y'all were trying to, like, get me to be complicit? Catherine and Mary had a huge falling out, which is really sad because they loved each other they were so close for so long. But now Mary is just like, that was tacky peasant ass behavior. You are a Dowager Queen. What the fuck were you thinking? And so let's discuss this. Why do you think they couldn't have just waited for a year to pass?
It doesn't make sense. Like, why it had to be so fast.
I mean, she thought she couldn't get pregnant, so
it wasn't that.
Maybe it really was just like, because remember, she is quite devout. She is religious. And so maybe she's just thinking it's a sin and I'm really, really horny. I don't know.
She's like, might as well make it official so I'm not sinning anymore.
Yeah, I don't know. It just seems like for such a smart woman, she made a really dumb move with this one.
I know. Like, literally, just wait 8 months. You'll be fine.
Yeah. Either way, Catherine's reputation took a huge hit on a national level. Like, so much so that Anne Stanhope, her now sister-in-law / worst enemy, decided that Catherine was no longer the highest-ranking woman in England. Instead, she declared herself the highest ranking woman in England.
Wait, what? Who? What? Huh?
Okay, remember? So Edward Seymour is the Lord Protector, so he's now the de facto King of England. That's now Catherine's brother-in-law. So his wife, Anne, is a stone-cold snob, and she was born into a higher-ranking family than Catherine was anyway. And so while Catherine was queen, Anne apparently really resented having to walk behind Catherine, and she would say, like, she would always, even when Catherine was queen, she would call her Lady Latimer to people, because remember that was her second husband. Yeah, she was like, oh, I can't believe I have to hold the train of Lady Latimer. Like, she's just a stone cold snob. And so now that Catherine had acted like peasant behavior and made this quick tacky marriage, Anne Stanhope was like, well, my husband's Lord Protector. I don't have to walk behind that country pumpkin, Catherine Parr, anymore. Fuck that.
Anne was not shy. She wanted everyone to know what she thought about her sister-in-law. And here's a direct quote that she said about Catherine. Quote, did not Henry VIII marry Catherine Parr when he had brought himself so low by his lust and cruelty that no other lady would venture on him? Ouch. Ooh.
Like, I get... Yeah, basically,
burn.
In modern English, that's like, no one else would have them, so that's why he had to go with this nobody. Yeah. This is actually some really petty housewife kind of shit. One day, they are at court. When you walk in groups, the person with the highest rank walks in front, and then that's just kind of how you walk. Anne physically pushed Catherine out of the way to walk at the front of the line.
Oh,
like, in front of everybody. This would make such good reality TV.
The level of petty. Oh, my gosh.
I mean, I don't know that much about Anne Stanhope. I don't really like snobby-ass bitches, so it seems like I don't love her, but I do love the level of just petty drama. I am here for that shit. Absolutely.
Yeah, right. Not only this, though, but Anne wouldn't give Catherine her jewels. In his will, Henry gave Catherine the right to wear the royal jewels as Dowager Queen, basically until Edward got married and there was another queen in England. One day, Catherine shows up to grab one of her jewels, and Anne Stanhope is basically like, nope. Peasant behavior, basic bitches. Don't get to wear crown jewels. No, no, no.
No, no, no. That would be some good merch.
Peasant behavior, basic bitches.
Peasant behavior, basic bitches. Well, like, it wasn't even just the crown jewels, too, because in that collection was, like, some of Catherine Parr's mom's jewelry. And, like, Anne Stanhope wouldn't let her. She's like, nope, these are property of the crown now, and you're a peasant-ass bitch. You don't get to wear any of this stuff. So it was really petty on multiple levels. Yeah. These two women hated each other. But their husbands weren't any better. Their husbands, the brothers, are fucking, like, bumping heads. Like, these are giving the Gallagher brothers from the Oasis, like, next level. Like, they are just publicly talking shit on each other, fighting in public. These two couples were just dirty laundry in public. It needs to be a reality show.
And this whole thing with the crown jewels could actually be its own petty fucking episode. It was so much more drama than we have time for, so we need to move on. But before we do, just to set the scene of how Catherine felt about the other Seymours, she wrote in a letter to her husband, "My lord, your brother hath this afternoon made me a little warm. It was fortunate we were so much distance, for I suppose else I should have bitten him."
Bitten him! Translation, he pissed me off so bad I wanted to bite him. I love that. When I read that in the book that linked in the show notes to the book that I read for this research, I laughed out loud because I'm just imagining this woman who in every other instance before this was always so poised, so put together, and then just being like, I wanted to bite that motherfucker.
It's the Mike Tyson shit.
Catherine Parr Tyson.
And due to this drama with the other Seymours and everyone at court talking shit, Catherine's like, you know what? I have this whole ass manor that I own, and no one can take that away from me. I can have my own staff, my own friends. Shit, I can throw my own parties and not invite anyone that wants to talk shit about me. You know what?
There you go.
I'm going home. So she went back to Chelsea Manor, and for the next few months, seems like she was genuinely happy.
We've never really talked about it in the 3 episodes leading up to this, but Catherine loved music and dancing. But as Lady Latimer and then as Queen, she always had to have her guard up. She always had to set an example. She couldn't be shown being so frivolous as to love partying. But now, why the fuck not? Every night, it's music and dancing and wine. Why the fuck not? And I love that for her. We're finally getting to see her have a little fun for the first time in her 35, 36 years on life.
Yeah, she's got her man. She's set financially. She does have her family. I mean, she has Elizabeth there with her. Her sisters come and visit often. And one silver lining about brother-in-law being in charge, he's a Protestant. So she can have her Protestant book club without having to worry about any, of her friends getting tortured. So totally unbothered and living her happy life at Chelsea Manor.
And that's the end of the story. No.
Yay!
We leave it there. Yes, no. So it was one of those nights, though, that the wine is flowing, the party's going, and Catherine's like sitting out one of the dances. And so she suggests that her stepdaughter, Elizabeth, dance with Thomas. She's like, oh, I want to sit this one out, but you should totally dance with him. He's a great dancer. Totally innocent. Who hasn't danced with one of their uncles or something at a wedding? Like, it was totally innocent.
But just after a minute of dancing, Elizabeth turns beet red and excuses herself. And someone said something offhand like, oh, she's got a crush on you. Probably just joking and meant it totally innocent, but ruh-roh. This seems like it planted something really gross in Thomas's head, so I don't want to, but we're going to have to put a pin in that.
Put a regretful pin in that shit, yeah.
Bing.
So Thomas was still going back and forth to court a lot and trying to undermine, everything his brother did. He's trying to get him and Catherine more power back on top. And in pursuit of this, he obtains a really powerful ward, which a ward basically means like you go to a powerful family and you tell them, or I pay you to like raise your kid and I'm going to get them in proximity to more powerful people. It's just about making connections. And so they bring into Chelsea Manor this little known girl named Lady Jane Grey.
Oh, shout out to our first episode.
Yes. Yeah. So Thomas Seymour's idea was, I'm gonna bring Lady Jane Grey into our house, and I'm gonna get her engaged to Edward VI, the king, and your daughter will be queen one day. And so that was Thomas's scheme.
But Edward VI was never gonna marry Lady Jane Grey. They were definitely planning to marry him to some wealthy princess for alliance reasons, but in his mind, Thomas Seymour thought that he was eventually going to overthrow his brother and become protector himself. Oof.
And then put his ward in as Edward's wife, and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But that was, this is probably a good time to mention that Thomas was starting to lose his marbles a little bit. Like, he was becoming a little bit delusional. He was becoming overcome with, like I said, he just had a chip on his shoulder. And he was just, as the kids say, a little bit delulu. He also, I think, thinks that his nephew, Edward, loves him more than he actually does. He's like, oh, no, Edward's going to do whatever I say. So if I tell him to marry Lady Jane Grey, he's going to do it. And he's not going to ask any questions, and it's going to be fine.
Not accurate.
Yeah.
But that's okay, because
Delulu.
Catherine loved Jane Grey, and Jane Grey loved Catherine. So Catherine wouldn't have really given her husband's weird schemes and paranoia. She wouldn't have given him that much mind. Jane Grey was only 9 years old and loved to read and loved being Protestant. And Catherine was like, hey, girl.
You're going to fit in fine here. Yeah. Total side note, this is nothing to move the story along. I just thought this was interesting. Catherine Parr hires a tutor for Elizabeth and Lady Jane Grey. And the tutor had this outlandish idea that children should have more in their life than just school. So he encouraged them to find like other things that they like too. And if they weren't interested in a subject, he was like, okay, well, let's find a subject you are interested in. Because he was like, kids learn better when it's something they're inclined to want to learn about. And which to us now it's like, well, yeah, but back then the fact that the tutor was giving any thought to what the kids even cared about or their happiness was kind of like viewed as like hippie bullshit.
Yeah, like you let them do what they want to do.
What? And so I kind of love that Catherine, this was the person that she looked to like run their education. She was actually taking their happiness into mind. So I think that's really cool, right?
Yeah, and for a time they're all kind of existing as this really cool blended family at their place in Chelsea. And then nothing else happened, and they all lived happily ever after, didn't they?
And that's the end of the story.
Okay, that's a lie.
Okay.
Maury came back and he said that was a lie. Okay.
All right, well, let's go ahead and take a quick break before we got to get into some bummer shit. And when we come back, we'll wrap up the life of Catherine Parr.
Whatever the occasion, effortless elegance is right this way. Because Hilton brings you new ways to stay courtesy of the Nomad London. And it doesn't stop at award-winning dining in a space draped in velvet and illuminated by vintage chandeliers. No, this day goes beyond with unparalleled personalized service and attentive hospitality. Oh, and did we mention the Nomad London can be booked using your Hilton Honors points at Hilton.com? Hilton, for the stay.
This episode is brought to you by Indeed. When your computer breaks, you don't wait for it to magically start working again. You fix the problem. So why wait to hire the people your company desperately needs? Use Indeed's sponsored jobs to hire top talent fast. And even better, you only pay for results. There's no need to wait. Speed up your hiring with a $75 sponsored job credit at Indeed.com/podcast. Terms and conditions apply.
All right, and we have returned. Up to this point, Catherine's husband has been a bit of a hothead from time to time, but he hasn't really given us too much to, like, make us hate him yet. But hold on to your butts, because that is about to change, because Thomas was a huge fucking creep when it came to Elizabeth.
Thomas started going to Elizabeth's rooms every morning, hoping to catch her still in bed and wish her a good morning and act like he was going to get in bed with her. Ooh, or like starting to tickle her. And sometimes he would go and kiss her on the forehead while she was still in bed. Ugh, this is just so icky and inappropriate.
It was very, very inappropriate. Elizabeth would have been surrounded by attendants, like she had her own staff and stuff too, and they would like shoo him away. And at first, it was viewed as kind of harmless, like a little weird, but harmless. But then he started doing this before, like, he was even dressed in the morning. So, like, yeah, like that in the Dickens Night Before Christmas, you know how the guy wore just like that big long shirt? That's kind of what men slept with back then.
It's a muumuu.
He had a muumuu. And nothing else. They didn't really wear tighty whities or anything. And he would come to Elizabeth's room still just wearing his muumuu. Act like he was going to get in bed with her. Dude, the fuck were you thinking? Well, we know what he was thinking. Once he was able to get away with a little bit of inappropriate behavior, it just kept escalating.
Now, there's a good chance that at first, Catherine didn't know about her husband's early morning pajama parties with his stepdaughter. Elizabeth's attendants...
Moo-moo get downs.
Moo-moo get down. Yeehaw. Elizabeth's attendants were probably hoping they could shut this whole thing down, sweep it under the rug without even having to go to Catherine, but eventually they told her. Mm-hmm. And Catherine was like, y'all are the ones being pervs. This is just stepfather behavior. Excuse him for having interest in the life of his stepdaughter.
Right. We've used this phrase on this show before, but I believe our girl was 100% dickmatized. That is when a smart woman starts thinking with body parts that are not her brain because for the first time in her life, she's sexually satisfied. So, hypnotized by that D, dickmatized.
What Catherine saw was her sweet and beautiful, yet very shy stepdaughter coming out of her shell. And she believed that the extra attention from her husband was doing nothing but boosting Elizabeth's confidence. Though what everyone else in the world could see besides herself is that Thomas was clearly hoping to groom Elizabeth into one day, soon, being his mistress. And that Elizabeth may have been forming an infatuation with Thomas as well.
Right. I think on a subconscious level, Catherine knew that the relationship was weird because she did eventually start joining Thomas on the moo-moo get-downs, like going and tickling Elizabeth in bed in the morning. And there's this one really bizarre story where Catherine held Elizabeth down while Thomas takes scissors or his pocket knife or whatever and they cut up her dress. What?
Oh my God.
The dickmatization has got this very, very smart woman doing some weird shit, and I don't love it.
And rumors of the weird relationship were flying around so much that they even got through the doors of Chelsea Manor. And people at court are whispering that Thomas Seymour is basically living with two wives.
Yeah, there was rumors there was a story that Elizabeth had a secret love child with Thomas, and that story was actually common. A lot of people believed it up until the Victorian era.
Wow.
Yeah, that was a really, really widespread rumor. That's how ridiculous this was getting. Yeah. To our modern minds, we look at this and we clearly see that Thomas Seymour is grooming Elizabeth. She was 14. Even if she was flirting back and encouraging this, our 2025 brains are but she's a child. She can't consent. She doesn't know the gravity of her actions. Things were different then. It's not right, but that's how it was. And this relationship was totally scandalous. And to those Tudor brains, a 14-year-old was basically a grown woman. So if an affair would have happened, most people would have looked at Elizabeth as the person to blame. And I hate everything I just said.
I do too. But OMG, y'all, something huge happened that stopped Catherine from thinking about any of these silly rumors. She wasn't thinking of her bitch sister-in-law or the jewels that she couldn't wear. Finally, for the first time in her life, Catherine is pregnant.
Oh my God. She probably thought she could. This is something she would never be able to do. And she was just flabbergasted. She thought she couldn't have kids. But now she is pregnant and she is just over the moon. She's always wanted children of her own. And look how attentive she's been to her stepkids all this time. So she's just happy.
Mm-hmm. However, for the time, she was considered a high-risk pregnancy. Today, a woman having her first child at 35 or 36, not too uncommon. But in that day and time, it was a really big risk.
Yeah. And our girl was sick. This was a hard pregnancy on her. She knew she couldn't have anything else putting stress on her body. And so as the pregnancy progressed, she would get sicker and sicker. And that digmatization started to fade.
Mm-hmm. Elizabeth had this woman who was her long life attendant named Cat Ashley. Catherine one day, out of nowhere, calls Cat Ashley to her rooms and just tears into her. Do you know what people are saying about Elizabeth at court? They're saying she's sleeping with men while living under my roof. How dare you allow this to happen?
And I'm sure Cat Ashley has been like, bitch, I have been telling you the vibes are off. But okay. And after this, Catherine always tried to either be with Thomas or Elizabeth just to make sure nothing actually was going on. She never came straight out and said the rumors are that Thomas and Elizabeth are fucking. She would just say the rumors are that Elizabeth is fucking a man. But, I mean, who was the man that lived there, you know? Like, so she was always trying to be with them without coming right out and saying what she had heard. And then one day the shit just really hit the fan.
In May 1548, Catherine walks into a room and finds Elizabeth and Thomas alone. Mm-hmm. And they were embracing and having a very, very intimate moment. And Catherine lost her fucking mind. Rightfully so.
And rightfully so, right? It's like just seeing it. Like, I'm not crazy. Something's going on here. So Catherine is obviously so pissed off at her fuckboy husband trying to hook up with her stepdaughter. But also, you have to remember, she's been given custody of the king's sister. And she's supposed to keep Elizabeth safe and keep Elizabeth's reputation safe. So Catherine took that very, very seriously. So this is a double betrayal because, one, you've embarrassed me. And two, I had one job and you've fucked it up. And also on top of all that, she's heartbroken. Like, her husband is clearly trying to sleep with her stepdaughter. Like, what the fuck?
Catherine made the really tough decision and sent Elizabeth away to live with another noble family. But before she went, Catherine and her had a little heart-to-heart. And Catherine was like, look, I want you to know that I don't blame you, but girl, you got to be more careful. You have to look out for your reputation and you have to think before you act.
Right. You know what that made me think of? Do you remember when we covered Catherine Howard, how when Catherine Howard's aunt knew that Catherine Howard was partying and hooking up and stuff, and all she said to her was like, that's going to affect your beauty? This just shows that Elizabeth had better people in her corner. For the time and the place, Catherine Parr could have been like, you bitch-ass slut, you know, da-da-da. But instead, she's just like, you have to look out for your reputation. And I don't blame you, but you are a woman and this is history and history is a bag of dicks. You have to be more careful. And I just think that's kind of just seeing the difference of having a good support system and then famously a horrible support system like Catherine Howard had, you know? Anyway, that's just an interesting parallel.
And after Elizabeth left, we don't really know what went down between Thomas and Catherine.
I bet some real intense conversations happened.
But in the eyes of the public, they just acted like they were just as in love as ever and everything's normal. Obviously, though, Catherine was heartbroken, and it does kind of seem like she is a lot less stigmatized than she had previously been. And unfortunately, this is when it's a big old stone cold bummer.
Everything's a bummer after this. As Catherine's pregnancy went on, like we said, she was getting really sick and having to stay home. She couldn't go to court. But Thomas was still going to court and to keep up appearances and, you know, all his schemes of like gaining power. And he's starting to get more paranoid because also he doesn't have just like the blind support of his wife anymore like he did. He is just writing to Catherine kind of stressing her out, being like, these people are plotting against me. This person hates me. This person's plotting against me. And like, he's her only like ticket to the outside world right now because she's staying home. And so that probably wasn't helping her either, being stressed the fuck out about that shit.
Yeah, and everyone at court is giving Thomas the side eye. Like, this guy has lost his goddamn mind. No one is doing anything to hurt your career, bro.
Except for you.
Except you. You are your own worst enemy. Like, and his brother Edward straight up told him, the only reason I'm not throwing you in jail for being a little shit starter is out of respect for your wife, the Dowager Queen.
And I think Catherine knew that he was paranoid and delusional, but he was her only access to the outside world. And so she's feeling super isolated. And she missed Elizabeth. But like, she wasn't going to do anything that would like hurt Elizabeth's reputation and bring her back, obviously. So she's lonely on top of everything.
There was a plague in London that summer. So they all moved to Thomas's castle he got when he was made Baron, Sudley Castle, which was a bit of a trek, and this summer in particular was unusually hot. So when they got there, she is exhausted. And she's like, I need this baby out of me right now.
And on August 30th, 1548, Catherine gave birth to a healthy baby girl. And the delivery seems to have been relatively uneventful. Mom and baby were both healthy. Oh my God, best case scenario. They named the daughter Mary after Princess Mary. Catherine and Mary start writing to each other again.
Despite having a safe delivery, after a day or two, Catherine started to feel sick. And we've talked about childbed fever before. It's now known as puerperal fever.
Yeah, I don't know how to say that word. Puerperal fever?
Puerperal fever.
It's
nailed
a fever.
It.
Nailed it.
And this is basically like you get an infection after giving birth. And today, totally treatable with just antibiotics. But back then, it was just as much of a threat as actually giving birth. And poor Catherine knew exactly what was happening.
Right. That's how Jane Seymour died. Yeah. And by September 3rd, it's obvious that, like, she's dying. And Catherine starts to lose, like, she's just not, her mind is going. And now she's paranoid. And now this poor woman, is just acting paranoid and saying some horrible, horrible shit. And I do feel bad for Thomas here because, like, he's not a great guy. His reputation in history is horrible. But I think he had genuine affection for Catherine Parr, but she is just like tearing into him. And he would like try to give her some peace of mind. Like he would crawl into bed with her and try to hold her hand, try to comfort her. And she was just like railing on him, being like, you piece of shit, you cheated on me. And like she even accused him of not letting her see her doctor early enough. Which there's nothing in history that would suggest that he was like anti-doctor or something, like why would he do that? I just feel so bad for her and him. I feel bad for everybody in this situation. Could you imagine you're trying to comfort a loved one and they're hurling insults at you in front of the entire staff?
But she's obviously lost her mind. She's got a really bad infection, I'm sure. Oh, gosh.
Yeah.
I mean, but from time to time, she did have moments of lucidity. And in those moments, she did get to say goodbye to everyone she loved. So that's nice. Yeah. But sadly, on September 5th, just a week after giving birth to her long-awaited child, Catherine Parr, the Queen, the author, and the first Protestant Queen of England, passed away.
Thomas low-key lost his mind. Like, maybe we could do a Patreon episode on what he did next. But the TLDR is he tried to kidnap the king and got his head cut off. So,
well,
yeah. And their child, Mary, was given to some relatives to live with, and she disappears from the record. So she probably died in infancy or something.
So that is that's a really sad ending to a really, really interesting life.
I know. One thing, like, we always talk about legacy, and obviously she's an author. She's the first like published author in her own name that was like a queen. She was the first Protestant queen. But I think the most important thing about her legacy is her stepdaughter, Elizabeth. because I think we would be hugely mistaken to say that she didn't shape Elizabeth's way of thinking, teach her how to like try to see both sides of things. And I mean, she literally taught her. She hired her tutors. So yeah, I think Elizabeth I's life was definitely shaped by her stepmother. And I think, and that's been one of the most important rulers in European history. Not just female ruler, period. Like
ruler, period. Yeah. And we have Catherine Parr to thank for that.
Yeah.
That education.
So that was the life of Catherine Parr and the end of our Henry VIII Wives series. We've got through them all. It only took us 8 years, but there we go.
It only took us 8 years, and now we're on to the children, right?
Yeah. I guess the next one would be Mary. Yeah. All right, guys. Well, that is it for season 8. And that is it for Catherine Parr. And we will see y'all. Well, we'll see you over on Patreon if that's your thing. Otherwise, we'll see you in September.
Bye.
Bye.
Hey, JJ Virgin here. On my podcast, Well Beyond 40, we ditch the idea of aging gracefully and go all in on aging powerfully. Every week I host powerful experts who can give you powerful insights on building muscle, boosting your energy, and feeling amazing no matter what your age. This is your one life, and trust me, being smarter and stronger are superpowers that can turn lifespan into strength span. Listen to Well Beyond 40 wherever you get your podcasts.